Could I have the next slide, please? So these are just 6 of many, many wonderful examples that you will find in the Castle Conference archives. And we wanted to show how, for 30 years, people have been doing research, self-study research, that has an impact beyond the self, that has built up this wealth of knowledge and insight and contributed to a movement for educational change. Could I have the next slide, please? So these exemplars focused on issues of cultural identity, they focused on issues of colonialism, they focused on issues of gender and sexuality, they focused on issues of stigma, they focused on issues of marginalization, oppression, and racism. So it's really important, I think, to acknowledge that self-study research, yes, it's about educational improvement, but it's educational improvement that has these large issues in mind and that really wants to make a difference in terms of counteracting marginalization and oppression and enabling inclusion and multicultural learning and
hello, Radhika. How are you today?
And multiple conversations. So we were really excited and heartened. I started going to the Castle Conference in 2006, so almost 20 years ago, but it was so interesting to look back to the years before that and to see how these conversations had been taking place all the way back to 1996. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is another found poem from our conversations, and this one is called A Learning Methodology. Slowing down to be self-reflective, to practice active listening, to be witness to growth. Discover, gather without constraining, open space for unintended consequences. Multisensory and multilingual, configure and refigure. Try out ways of thinking. It's not a closed question. Go through the process. Capture the process as it moves. Openly and honestly confront different perspectives. Move out of the comfort zone. Not for the faint-hearted. The brave heart demands courage, demands integrity. Could I have the next slide, please? So, self-study is not for the faint-hearted, and it demands courage and integrity. And I think what is really interesting, and I like this image of the cross-section of a tree where you see these ripples moving outwards, and people like Anastasia Samaras and Sandra Weber and Claudia Mitchell have talked about the ripples of change when we decide, when we choose to be brave and to study our own practice in community with others. That can facilitate qualitative enhancements in education as we critically evaluate our practices with this emphasis on equity and social justice. And through self-study, we can challenge educational norms and bring in new perspectives, which make self-study a catalyst for extensive educational and social change. And it's really interesting to me to look back to how self-study originated in North American teacher education, but over the last 30 years it has expanded globally and across disciplines. We have self-study in health sciences, we have self-study in engineering, we have self-study in all kinds of spaces and contexts. And as it has evolved and people have drawn on their disciplinary knowledge, they have drawn on their cultural heritages, on their linguistic resources, self-study has grown and developed. And what is really interesting is the potential for change, that constantly we are seeing new self-study initiatives as more and more people in different spaces take it up. And so the body of knowledge that we have, the impact that we can make, continues to grow and push the boundaries of educational and social justice and inspiring change from within. Could I have the next slide, please? So just to say that this work that I have done with Makie and Ntokozo is part of a chapter that we wrote for the British Educational Research Association International Handbook of Research-Informed Education Policy and Practice. It's a very long title. But we saw the call for chapters for this book, and we were really inspired to write a chapter on self-study because nobody had done that before in these BERA handbooks. It wasn't a conversation that had happened. And we felt it was really, really important to bring self-study into that conversation and to make it available for people in the British Educational Research Association, but of course beyond that. And so that book is just being finalized at the moment and hopefully will be out very soon. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is the final found poem that I wanted to share with you today. It's called The Self-Study Movement. One life changed. What can it do to make a difference, to impact and inspire? We tell our stories to develop an ethical position, to produce our best true selves, not just our intellectual selves, a whole body experience that feels real, adding to others' learning, breaking down the status quo, living in that world where our research is, being creators of social change for the future university, for the public good. Could I have the next slide, please? So I wanted to share with you some open access resources. These are some really wonderful resources that you can access today for free. So the first one is the Castle Conference website. So on that website are the proceedings of the Castle Conferences going back to 1996, and that is just a fantastic resource. And of course, there is the Living Educational Theory Action Research website with Jack Whitehead and colleagues, which has wonderful self-study dissertations and theses and papers and videos. It's a really amazing resource. There's also the Self-Study of Teacher Education Practices Special Interest Group of the American Educational Research Association. And in South Africa, we have the Self-Reflexive Methodologies Special Interest Group that is headed by Makie Kortjass and Ntokozo Mkhize-Mthembu. And also an open access article that you might find helpful, which is in the Journal of Teaching and Teacher Education. It also offers a meta-analysis of self-study research in that journal. And what was quite interesting about doing that work is that, again, just in that journal, there is a wealth of self-study, and there are articles going back 20 years, and it's really interesting to see how self-study has appeared in different places. So the Journal of Teaching and Teacher Education is not specifically a self-study journal, but it does offer that growth and development of self-study over time. Okay, so the final slide, please. Thank you. So Makie and Ntokozo and I, you can see us here with Jack Whitehead. This was at the BERA conference in 2023. We would like to thank you for engaging in this conversation with us. QR codes will take you to our university web pages if you want to get in touch, have a look at what we've been up to, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you in this space and online. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen.